is that girl?
The Blues Brothers hit theaters in 1980, telling the story of a chaotic and adventurous journey across Chicago, where brothers Jake and Elwood Blues must complete their mission to save the orphanage where they grew up. With a message from God, they reunite their old band face. The police confront the Illinois Nazi gang and even storm abandoned bars, all while performing electrifying musical numbers that keep audiences on their feet. The blend of wild action humor and blues music turned the film into a cinematic experience that is both thrilling and unpredictable. And its commercial and cultural success proved the timeless appeal of this story. But behind the record-breaking car chases and explosive musical performances lie countless fascinating behind-the-scenes stories. Did you know John Belushi was nicknamed the Black Hole for losing hundreds of pairs of sunglasses on set? Or that Cab Calloway almost performed Minnie the Moocher in a disco style instead of sticking to the classic jazz version? These stories are just the tip of the iceberg. So what really happened behind the lights, the music and the laughter? Let's dive into 20 strange facts you probably didn't know. 20. Set a record for most cars destroyed in a film. The Blues Brothers entered cinema history for its unprecedented car destruction scale. During filming, the crew destroyed over 100 cars, with numbers usually cited as 103 or 104, including the 13 Dodge Monacos used as bluesmobiles, to achieve authentic effects for insane chases through downtown Chicago. Landis and the crew bought dozens of old police cars and civilian vehicles and destroyed them on actual streets, turning the film into a chaotic symphony of smoke, steel, and sirens. The nearly 10-minute chase through the closed Dixie Square Mall was one of the most daring stunts of the time, increasing the number of smashed cars and ballooning production costs. This record made the Blues Brothers the most car-destructive film in the world for a time, until the Junkmen surpassed it with over 150 vehicles destroyed in a single action sequence. 19. The script was 300 pages like a book. Dan Aykroyd wrote the story of the Blues Brothers amid chaotic tour schedules on buses backstage, in dim hotel rooms, anywhere the band had a few minutes to breathe. The spaces around him were filled with laughter music and the fatigue of long consecutive nights. He persistently built his own world where the two Saturday Night Live characters became the soul of a new universe. However, when Dan Aykroyd submitted the first draft of the Blues Brothers, no one at Universal knew whether to laugh or cry. Before them was not an ordinary film script, but a 324-page encyclopedia typed on yellow paper, hand-bound with the strange title, The Return of the Blues Brothers, written by Scriptatron GL 9000. There was no standard format, no three-act structure, not even clear scene divisions. Just a whirlwind of words, a maze of music, car chases, and the desire to save souls through the blues. The executives flipped through the pages, exchanging looks of both shock and confusion. "Is this a script? Or a prophecy?" someone murmured. Aykroyd, having never written a script before, let his imagination flow like an endless saxophone solo. He not only wrote a story, but painted an entire universe from the origins of each character. The dark Chicago setting to the detailed biographies of each band member. Each page fell like a heavy, chaotic rain of words, nearly 3 times the length of a standard film script. Universal called it impossible to shoot. Aykroyd called it a musical journey that must be lived, not shortened. Then John Landis stepped in like a saviour, or rather a daring editor. In 3 weeks, he distilled the 324-page madness into a complete shootable film, vibrant on screen. Landis trimmed and arranged, keeping the wild soul that Aykroyd planted in every line. From chaos, they created a legend. And when the sirens blared as the bluesmobile sped through the streets of Chicago, everyone knew within that first madness a masterpiece was born. 18. Dan Aykroyd proposed to Carrie Fisher during filming. Love between Dan Aykroyd and Carrie Fisher blossomed amid the music and car smoke of the Blues Brothers. They first met when Fisher appeared on Saturday Night Live in 1978, where Aykroyd was a main star. But it wasn't until they worked together on this crazy musical film, amid chaotic overnight shoots and laughter echoing across the set, that their relationship truly ignited. According to Aykroyd, he saved Fisher using the Heimlich maneuver when she choked on Brussels sprouts during a meal, and that moment made them realize they had something special. Their romance quickly progressed. They spent time together between shoots, sharing the rhythm of music and the madness of Jake and the mysterious gun-wielding woman. Aykroyd recounted that while considering marriage, he gave Fisher a sapphire ring, and they even had a blood test to check their compatibility. Yet like any blues, their story ended on a low note. After filming, Carrie Fisher reunited with musician Paul Simon, a former lover, and later married him. In a tribute to Fisher years later, Aykroyd wrote, "She married Paul Simon, but I hope she still kept my ring." It was a short but real love story, a romantic and sincere melody written right amid the wild rhythm of the Blues Brothers. What do you think about this sad love story? Share your thoughts. 17. Exceptional success beyond the US. The film's content was only about two guys in black suits and an old police car, yet it became a global phenomenon. Although its American debut was somewhat rough, many theatres refused to show it, calling it too dark or too weird internationally. The Blues Brothers created a sensation. The film grossed $57 million in the US and over $58 million abroad, prompting director John Landis to proudly declare it the first American film whose international revenue exceeded domestic earnings. In total, the film made over $115 million worldwide, an impressive number for a quirky musical comedy at the time. Around the world, especially in Australia, the film was not just watched, it was relived. In Melbourne, the Valhalla Cinema turned it into a community ritual for over 2 decades, from the 1980s to the late 1990s. Every Friday night, hundreds flocked there, most dressed as Jake and Elwood Blues in black suits, sunglasses holding fake microphones. Outside the theatre, a replica bluesmobile was usually parked like a sacred greeting for the film's devotees. Audience members didn't just watch, they reenacted scenes on stage. Over 30 local actors performed live in front of the screen, singing and dancing to songs by Aretha Franklin, James Brown, Ray Charles. Inside, 400 people shouted in unison, "We're on a mission from God," whenever the line appeared. The atmosphere was not just entertainment, but a cinematic ritual similar to the Rocky Horror Picture Show screenings in New York, where the boundary between audience and performer vanished. Do you love this film? Share your thoughts in the comments. 16. Recognized by the Vatican. In 2010, the Blues Brothers turned 30, and this rebellious musical comedy unexpectedly received official recognition from the Vatican. L'Osservatore Romano, the Holy See's newspaper, published an article praising the Blues Brothers as a Catholic classic, placing it alongside legendary religious films like The Ten Commandments and It's a Wonderful Life. In fact, the Blues Brothers, though, wrapped in humour and explosive soul music, tells a story of faith redemption and divine mission. Brothers Jake and Elwood Blues are not saints, but they act for good, saving the Catholic orphanage where they grew up despite all dangers. They call it a mission from God and pursue it with sincere faith, though sometimes clumsy and chaotic. 15. They actually destroyed 13 Bluesmobiles. The car chases in The Blues Brothers are a declaration of real madness in cinema history. No CGI, no miniatures, no digital effects. Every sharp turn collision and airborne car scene was done with real cars and real people. Director John Landis used 13 1974 Dodge Monacos, all former police cars refurbished to become the legendary Bluesmobile. Additionally, the crew bought 60 more discarded police cars at $400 each and hired 40 professional stunt drivers to perform high-speed chase scenes in Chicago every weekend. During filming, the streets of Chicago became an underground racetrack. Landis obtained special permits to allow speeds over 100 mph on Lake Street, nearly impossible at the time. But upon reviewing the first footage, he found the speed not fast enough on screen. His bold and peculiar solution have extras walk very slowly on the sidewalks to emphasize the real speed of the cars. This allowed audiences to feel the insane velocity rather than just cinematic illusion. Crash and flip scenes were staged with simple but effective mechanical techniques. A shallow trench was dug so police cars could flip into the air upon impact, creating the legendary chaotic finale. In a record jump, a stunt driver drove off a 150-foot-high ramp holding the set breathless. Astonishingly, after all the high-speed fire and twisted metal sequences, the crew only recorded minor injuries. 14. Part of the film's budget went to cocaine. During filming, John Belushi was deep in drug and heroin addiction. According to director John Landis and co-star Dan Aykroyd, the shooting schedule was constantly disrupted because Belushi frequently disappeared or showed up in a disheveled state. On one occasion, the crew had to search for him all over Chicago and found him sleeping on a sofa in someone's home, where he was invited only because they recognized the Saturday Night Live star. Even more shocking was that part of the film's budget was actually allocated for drugs. Aykroyd admitted that during that period, late-night shoots were often fueled by cocaine, to the extent that the studio had to set aside a separate budget for this stimulant. Landis later revealed that he once discovered a pile of drugs in Belushi's trailer and flushed it down the toilet for fear the film would collapse. Nevertheless, no one on set was truly angry with Belushi. What do you think about this fact? Share your thoughts. 13. Aretha Franklin struggled with lip-syncing. When Aretha Franklin entered the Blues Brothers set to film her performance of Think the Crew, quickly realized they were dealing with an artist who could not be confined by normal cinematic rules. While most singers would lip-sync to a pre-recorded track, Aretha sang as if each note was born in the moment. Each take, she changed tempo, emphasis, even gestures and expressions. This freedom made lip-syncing almost impossible, and each cut left the crew looking at each other in awe and despair. Director John Landis later recounted that Aretha never sang a song the same way twice. She couldn't and didn't want to. After many attempts adjusting playback speed and restarting takes, the crew finally surrendered to her instinctive power. Instead of forcing her into a technical frame, they let Aretha lead the rhythm with camera and sound adapting to her. The result was a technically imperfect performance but brimming with life truth and the fire of a woman singing with soul rather than a track. 12. Cab Calloway almost appeared in a disco version. Jazz legend Cab Calloway, who captivated the world with Minnie the Moocher in 1931, nearly appeared in the Blues Brothers with a disco version. On set, Calloway wanted to perform his classic song in the trendy style of the late 1970s with a faster tempo and upbeat backing. Director John Landis, however, firmly opposed it. In DVD commentary, Landis recounted persuading Calloway to abandon the disco idea as it would have undermined the nostalgic spirit of the film. Thanks to this decision, when Calloway appeared in a white suit stepping from backstage and singing "Heidi Hide Hida Ho Time," seemed to freeze. Instead of a trendy performance, audiences witnessed a tribute to the essence of jazz, pure, elegant and enchanting. Landis was right. Keeping the classic intact made the Blues Brothers not just a musical film, but a heartfelt homage to the golden era of swing and the souls who shaped American music. 11. The Blues Brothers band played live themselves. When Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi decided to take the Blues Brothers beyond a Saturday Night Live sketch, into a serious musical project, they did something bold, rarely attempted in Hollywood. They formed a real band. This included Steve the Colonel Cropper and Donald Duck Dunn, the legendary Stax Records duo from Booker T and the MGs who played with Otis Redding and Wilson Pickett. Alongside them were Matt Guitar Murphy Memphis's stormy guitarist, Blue Lou Marini and Tom Malone from the SNL horn section, and drummer Willie Too Big Hall, featured on dozens of Motown hits. Together, they created the Blues Brothers Band, a real band touring for real performing with explosive energy, so audiences forgot it started as a joke. They began performing on television, then released the live album Briefcase Full of Blues at the Universal Amphitheatre, hitting #1 on the Billboard 200, selling over 2 million copies and becoming one of the best-selling blues albums ever. On screen, Steve Cropper and Duck Dunn, with their calm demeanour and familiar fenders, delivered funk rhythms straight to the bone. Blue Lou Marini, with his fiery saxophone, matched the fire of his coat. Each appeared as a fictionalized version of themselves, giving the Blues Brothers rare authenticity. The music in the film was not overdubbed, but performed live on set. Only Paul Schaffer, SNL's musical director and initial architect of the Blues Brothers style, could not appear due to scheduling conflicts. Yet his absence did not diminish the band's vitality. After the film's success, the Blues Brothers Band continued touring worldwide, releasing other live albums like Made in America 1980, becoming one of the rare fictional bands to step into reality and perform for decades. 10. Belushi's nickname, the Black Hole. John Belushi was nicknamed the Black Hole by the entire film crew. The reason was simple. Anything that entered Belushi's orbit tended to disappear, especially sunglasses. His character Jake Blues was always associated with the iconic black Ray-Ban Wayfarers. But throughout filming, Belushi lost hundreds of pairs of glasses. Whenever director John Landis shouted, "Cut," it was almost certain that another pair of sunglasses had vanished, forgotten in the police car, dropped in a wrecked parking lot, or simply gone without a trace. The costume department had to prepare an entire box of backup glasses just for Belushi, and the Black Hole legend quickly became an inside joke among the crew. 9. Connection to Star Wars. The Blues Brothers had an interesting connection to Star Wars. Everyone knows Carrie Fisher Princess Leia from Star Wars appeared as Jake Blues' ex-girlfriend with a deep-seated grudge. But few noticed that hidden in the opening frames of the film was another Jedi Frank Oz, the creator of Yoda's soul. In the opening scene, when Jake is released from Joliet prison, the stern warden returns each of his personal items, his briefcase, sunglasses, and fedora. That man was Frank Oz. Just weeks earlier, he had stunned the world with Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back. Coincidentally, when the Blues Brothers premiered in June 1980, The Empire Strikes Back was still dominating the box office at #1, with John Landis's film right behind at #2. Two films unexpectedly crossing paths in the same historic moment of cinema. 8. The chase scene took place in a real shopping mall. The iconic chase scene in The Blues Brothers took place in a real shopping mall, Dixie Square Mall in Harvey, Illinois. When the crew arrived, it was already a relic of its golden era, once bustling in the 1960s, but abandoned by the mid-1970s due to crime and gangs. This made it the perfect setting for John Landis, the film's director, who needed a real location to destroy without rebuilding from scratch. In 1979, Landis rented the entire mall for 8 weeks, turning it into a cinematic battlefield. According to crew members before filming began, they filled the empty stores with real merchandise, with a promise to return everything undamaged. The empty parking lot was also filled with over 700 brand new cars, just to create the feeling of a functioning shopping centre. Once filming started, everything from signs and glass to merchandise became victims of one of the most destructive chase scenes in cinema history. Electrician Mark Hogan recalled that local residents could not believe the city allowed a real mall to be destroyed like this. They watched in awe as police cars smashed into concrete pillars while Belushi and Aykroyd sped down hallways like men blessed by God. After filming, Dixie Square Mall was never restored. It remained abandoned and dilapidated for decades, becoming a pilgrimage site for Blues Brothers fans, those wanting to witness where the Bluesmobile left its final mark. In 2012, the mall was officially demolished, but its legend lives on. Are you impressed by this scene in the film? Share your thoughts. 7. Chicago police liked Belushi. At the time, John Belushi was almost the king without a throne in Chicago. With explosive fame from Saturday Night Live and the massive success of National Lampoon's Animal House, Belushi became a nationally revered comedy figure, and Chicagoans adored him passionately. According to producer Mitch Glazer, many times the crew was stopped by police only for the officers to recognize Jake Blues in the car, immediately shake his hand, laugh heartily and personally drive him home. Director Dan Aykroyd later joked that Belushi was like Chicago's unofficial mayor, able to enter any bar or street without anyone daring to say no. He endeared himself not only through laughter, but with raw, warm energy and a burning passion for music. During tense filming days, being cheered by police workers and Chicago residents made the crew feel like they were performing a love letter to the city of laborers, exhaust smoke and blues rhythm. 6. Most actors practiced choreography for days. Interestingly, most actors had to practice choreography for days to synchronize every movement with the musical rhythm. Performances by Aretha Franklin. Ray Charles and Cab Calloway were meticulously choreographed with each movement and foot tap carefully measured. But John Belushi was different. He believed Jake Blues was not a performer, but a soul possessed by music acting on instinct, not rules. When dance rehearsals were scheduled, Belushi flatly refused to learn the steps. He only wanted to listen to music and let his body move freely. The result was that Belushi's dance scenes, especially in Shake a Tail Feather, or when he and Aykroyd jammed on stage, were completely unchoreographed. 5. John Candy improvised the Orange Whip scene. John Candy appeared briefly as Officer Burton Mercer, but in just a few minutes on screen, he left an unforgettable mark. Initially, director John Landis viewed Candy as a minor character to balance the chaos of Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi. However, when filming began, Candy quickly proved he was a secret weapon of the film. His most iconic moment came entirely spontaneously. In the scene following Jake and Elwood at the theatre, Candy turned to two officers and blurted out, "Who wants an orange whip? Orange whip, orange whip. 3 orange whips." The line wasn't in the script. Candy invented it on the spot, and it made the whole crew laugh. Landis loved the authenticity so much that he kept it in the final cut. Do you enjoy Candy's scene? Share your thoughts. 4. Belushi endured real pain. John Belushi. The soul of the film secretly battled a real injury. According to crew members in the final days of filming, Belushi fell from a boy's skateboard during a break. The accident left him with a serious back injury, just as the crew prepared to film the climactic scene, the Blues Brothers' final performance. An orthopedic doctor was brought to set, administered painkillers, and taped Belushi on the spot so he could stand and complete the scene without complaint. Witnesses said Belushi nearly dragged himself onto the stage, but when the music played, he exploded with energy as if nothing had happened. His professionalism earned the crew's respect. 3. Belushi was paid double. Dan Aykroyd. Because John Belushi was already a phenomenon after Saturday Night Live and Animal House, it was no surprise Universal agreed to pay him £500 double the $250 Dan Aykroyd received. Everyone on set knew Belushi was the audience draw, the name that could turn a crazy project like the Blues Brothers into a box office hit. Aykroyd, though co-creator and close co-star, was in the early stage of his film career, and he didn't complain. He knew that in this duo, Belushi was the soul the storm, bringing lights and audience with him. 2. The controversial Illinois Nazis scene. The Illinois Nazi scene in The Blues Brothers was one of the boldest and most controversial moments in the film. Henry Gibson, playing the leader of this extremist group, led uniformed men lined up by the river, mocking protesters and pledging allegiance to Adolf Hitler. Few knew that almost all dialogue and gestures in the scene were taken verbatim from the documentary The California Reich, a work portraying the American neo-fascist movement at the time. The near-complete mimicry gave the scene a particular weight, both chillingly realistic and sharply satirical, leaving viewers unsure where comedy ended and reality began. According to IMDb and other behind-the-scenes sources, Gibson's group in the film was called the American Socialist White People's Party, ASWPP, a pun on asswipe. Director John Landis deliberately retained this satire to make the Nazi group scene a pointed commentary on white extremist ideology. Fortunately, no official protest campaigns were recorded. 1. James Brown got lost from the film convoy. Legendary James Brown had a memorable behind-the-scenes incident. He got separated from the convoy and drove the Bluesmobile over 100 miles west on Interstate 180 all the way to Spring Valley, Illinois. When he stopped at a gas station to ask directions, Brown was stopped by local police because the car didn't have proper registration. The license plate was just a prop, and he didn't have a valid driver's license. The incident quickly became a set anecdote requiring crew intervention and highlighting how complicated coordinating a convoy with live music stars like James Brown could be. Looking back at the 20 facts about the Blues Brothers, it's hard not to be drawn into this chaotic, colourful world, from record-breaking car chases and lively musical performances to surprising behind-the-scenes stories like on-set romance or John Belushi's Black Hole nickname. Every detail, big or small, contributed to making the film not just a musical journey, but a journey into humanity humour and the dark corners Hollywood sometimes hides. Have you ever wondered what made the Blues Brothers a timeless classic? Share which fact you like best. Thank you for exploring these little-known secrets of the film. If you found it interesting and want to keep following unique behind-the-scenes stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to never miss a video.